Hey, welcome guys. Today we are going to build Tamiya's brand new M36 Jackson. Now, we just finished up our M18, so this is very similar, the Hellcat from Tamiya as well. So we'll do a little bit of compare and contrast, talk about the beautiful parts of this kit, the parts that, are what we expect from a brand new Tamiya release, as well as, without giving away any spoilers or being too negative, some maybe not so impressive parts and things that I would love to hear from you to see, anybody else's experiences with and things like that. So, without further ado, let's flip it over the bench. All right, so we will be starting with the lower hull, and we're more or less going to go in order here of directions. We will swap around a little bit, but this should give you kind of a good idea of at least how Tamiya designed the kit to flow. So my lower hull, as you see there, a tiny bit warped, but with the help of a little bit of glue, everything does go together as you would expect. We do have some unexpected that we will get to later. No spoilers. But we build up our own little bathtub hole pretty nice. But you can see there, a little bit warped, a little unusual, not gonna lie, for a 2025 Tamiya kit. Wouldn't expect that. We'll just say that. You don't get that out of the 1970s Tamiya kit. So we'll watch for some more stuff as we go here. Then we are gonna put a couple different pieces on the differential cover here. A lot of small pieces. This kit is not, speaking of a 1970s Tamiya kit, this is not a a really quick building Tamiya kit. Similar to the M18 Hellcat that I just did, this is a lot of pieces. This is, at least in Tamiya standards, this is an intermediate plus kit. Meaning there's a lot, going into the build, a lot of small parts, more than I guess they usually have. And then obviously the painting, which we'll get to in the next video, gets a little tricky at times as well. The good news though is a lot of things, I will say, fit very, very well on this kit. So we'll wrap up the differential cover here. And once that is all, the glue is set on all those pieces, that's when I like to sand. I think it just makes it a lot easier than holding those little pieces in my fingers and dropping them on the floor and then trying to find them. Once we have the differential cover done, we'll move on to step 3, which is the rear panel. And we'll get this put together and get our exhaust put on here. Nothing too tricky here. The only thing is on the exhaust. I don't know if they're left over from another kit, but there's kind of a nasty seam line on these exhaust pipes here. So just keep that in mind. It won't be the most visible thing, but depending on how much you plan on weathering it, it could be very visible, or you could cover it in mud and you'd never notice. All right, and now we're going to put the differential cover and the rear panel on here. And again, this took a little bit of pressure. We'll, kind of pinch and hold to get the front cover on. So back one, you see, kind of just slides right into place. That's what you would expect out of this kit. The front one needed to be kind of pressed and held in the shape. So a little interesting there. I never leave out the, idea that there is some user error. There's definitely user error when we get to the tracks, and we'll discuss that pretty soon here. But first, we're going to build up the deflector here, which, as you see, there are big and small holes. So it tells you to attach things in a certain order here. but this is the brilliant Tamiya engineering that you would expect on a 2025 kit. You cannot put the pieces in the wrong spot. You cannot put them backwards. They only go in a certain way, and that is the right way, which is really, really nice. Just allows us to, I like to cut off as many pieces as I can and sand them, for each of these different steps. Then we'll get the rest of the back plate finished here. Little tow hook. And some arms for our rear wheels here. And once we have that done, we'll attach our deflector, which a little bit tricky to get into place. Once it falls into place, you'll know. You kind of just got to wiggle it around until all of a sudden it sits still. And then you know that it's there, and we'll glue that. And we will move on to the bogies. Now, my personal advice for the bogies is going to be build each one. You saw it was A, B, C, and D. Build each one separately and attach them separately. They shouldn't be able to go on incorrectly. I kind of show it at the end. You could put the ones on the left in the incorrect spots on the left, but the ones from the left won't go on the right, if that makes sense. So Tamiya has helped us out a little bit. They didn't help us out with those seam lines. If you care about that, you're going to have to sand those quite a bit. I kind of decided I'm not going to care about that, so we'll see how big of a noticeable thing that is in the end. And then obviously, if you take the return roller and the wheels here, and you are careful with your glue, you'll be able to get them to rotate, which I would definitely advise for the road wheels, so you can paint them afterwards. Give them the ability to spin and everything. And the bogie assembly is really nice. This is definitely, it's a newer way of, at least from what I have seen, that's a newer way of Tamiya doing US bogies here. And I think it went together really, really well. Really, the only holdup is there's that large seam line that you might have to fill. You could just maybe do it with a lot of sanding. I just didn't feel like doing that much sanding. So here we are. I'm sure it'll get tucked under the tracks, and I might not ever notice it. But there I go. I am doing them again. I did them in reverse order, but I did do them one at a time. So that way we got everything in the right spot. And we can move on to our drive sprockets and the idlers. See, little tiny bit of wobble, but pretty much perfect there. We do get poly caps for both the drive sprockets and the idlers, which is nice. So both of those will spin and give us some kind of flexibility when we're putting the tracks on, which I don't know. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but we'll get to that in a second here once we pop those on. So the tracks. I am not impressed at all by the tracks in this kit. I will, again, always a great chance of user error. The long lengths of track are connected, and there's no gap in between each one of the pads, each one of the tracks. The individual ones, obviously there's going to be a gap, but you're going to see both. So you're going to see spots where there is a gap and where there isn't. So that's aesthetically thing number one. Thing number two is you have to be incredibly careful with where you are gluing, and it cannot be in the middle. If it's in the middle, you're going to get what you just saw from me, which is it's this stretched out piece of plastic in the middle because the teeth are just going to come apart. Even when you are really careful and you let the tracks sit for 5 to 10 minutes, they just kept falling apart on me like this. I have never seen this from a Tamiya kit. I said in my review, I wish they just put rubber band tracks as well. Give us both, and then we can figure out which we would like as the modeler. Um, I would have just used rubber band tracks after about 10 minutes of messing around with these. But personal opinion, personal experience with it, you see some of that stretched out plastic there, and I don't know. We're gonna have to go in and maybe do some scraping and regluing, and I don't know. I was even thinking about filling the middle of them so that they all looked uniform, because the way it is right now, again, half of them will be open, half of them will be closed, which I'd rather just have a consistent look. I don't care about an accurate look. I just like the consistent look. So I don't know. Something to keep in mind there. This is already, I think a $40 kit, $49 kit. I'm sure T-Rex and other companies have tracks, which are going to be $50. So I don't know. It feels silly to get resin tracks for a US tank. Uh, but if you are interested or you have already bought this, take some extra time to look at that. Um, I really, really have a hard time wrapping my head around being negative about something from a Tamiya kit, but that I again not impressed. Um, and I would, if I was to build this kit again, I would absolutely look for an alternative. But anyways, moving on, we'll kind of discuss at the end where where the tracks leave this kit, which I think was probably, at least in my mind, was pretty hyped for this year. A little bit of a disappointment, but again, we'll kind of touch on that again at the end. There is a step here as we're working on the sponsons and the underside of the upper hull. There is a spot where if you are doing option A, that you need to attach a decal right now. This is very similar to the M18 kit. Essentially, you just need to pay attention to the tools. I'm going to attach the tools and, you know, basically do version B. So I'm okay here, but if you were doing version A, what I did on the Hellcat was I attached them with Ammo by Mig Ultra Glue, which is like a basically fancy Elmer's glue. So you can pop them off later without breaking anything, and then slide the decal under it that way. But it is nice. Tamiya points that out at this point in the build. It would just be something, I don't like to build my models, paint them while building. Um, I don't like glue and paint. I don't know, it seems to work out well for other people, but never for me. So I like to build things and then come back and paint everything afterwards. And then we have, these are the auxiliary armor bosses. We have, feels like 20 of them that we have to get put into place here. And really the only worry with these is don't put too much extra thin under them. Try to be careful, because as you press it in, it obviously will kind of, press out the sides and end up melting the piece a little bit. We have some clear parts in this step that we are going to skip as well until we're done painting. Clear parts are going to obviously would go on those headlights there. But yeah, a good amount of small pieces on this kit. It is definitely not, a kit that you're going to build in one day. But the detail is really, really nice. Everything from the tracks up, everything above the tracks, I don't know how I'm trying to say that, on this kit is what you would expect. It's what we were waiting for. Slightly odd that they gave us the engine closed, the engine covers there, and we still got some blob handles, but it is what it is. It's not going to detract from the look at the end. because there's a lot going on in this kit. There's actually more going on in this kit than most other kits that I've built. I actually got tired of painting little details at the end, which is kind of my favorite part, oddly enough, outside of I like gluing plastic, but a lot of stuff going on here. Just feels like they could have given us maybe like one-piece engine cover, something like that. I guess the good news is we don't have to worry about painting the inside of it black or anything. But I'm sure people wanting more detail, that is something probably to complain about. All right, and then we have our spare tracks. We got our grousers put on. Now we have to put our spare tracks together, and this is kind of one of those floating assemblies. I've used that term before. You just kind of got to go for it, pinch it together, wiggle it around until it works. And until it's all together, it's kind of a mess. But once you get all of the pieces together, it just clicks into place, which is nice ultimately, but a little bit difficult to get going. And then we have our hatches that we can make here, and this is a really subtle part of this kit. I think it's one of the best parts of this kit. It's one of the most well-engineered parts of this kit, and overall just it goes together perfect, because with that raised hinge there, and the way that this hatch sits perfectly in place, all we have to do is use a touch of glue. One little touch of glue, and that'll hold the whole hatch in place. The glue won't spread because that hatch is positioned in such a way that the capillary action of the glue won't spread and melt the hatch to the tank body. And that's how it would be in real life, right? They wouldn't be glued together, which is what really happens on most pieces on a plastic kit. So really, really cool. Super small detail, but I thought worth pointing out, because it did make me smile when I was building it and kind of saw that. Then we have quite a few tools and other accessories to attach to the rear panel here. And I usually, and by usually mean almost 99% of the time, I leave tools off until the end. I decided to put them on, just do something different, do it a little bit differently. I think the biggest factor was that I wanted to / still want to do the winter camo on this. So I want the faded white over the tool clamps. I don't want to do that on the side, or just paint them green. So we'll try to get them as kind of one piece on the vehicle already to just make it more continuous, and I guess realistic looking. But we will be building and finishing this kit kind of in its green form, in its olive drab form. And then probably in the weathering video, we'll still, like I said, still planning on doing the winter camouflage, but we'll see. There is a lot of painted pieces on this that might make it a little bit difficult, but I don't know. We'll just see how I feel the day that I decide to do it. We'll keep a surprise for the last video in the series. So we have our turret interior here, and goes together very, very well. Not too many details here. Everything will be, I will say, very accessible to paint. I had an easier time painting the interior details of this than I did the Hellcat. This, like the Hellcat, had big injector pin marks on the inside that needed to be cleaned up. I used the extra thin there, as you can see, the blobs, to just smooth the plastic after sanding it. But I will say the turret ring does go together better than the Hellcat, I think. I think it's smoother. There's less of a seam line and things like that. But I know I had to use some filler on the M18, and I did not on this, so definitely an improvement. And there you can see it kind of just clicks and holds right into place. So really, really well engineered here. It will be tight to paint some of these details. You could easily, you know, if you really wanted to do a perfect job, you could paint and glue as you go here. I think a lot of people probably will. Again, I just don't like mixing paint and glue. But if you also don't like mixing paint and glue, you can just barely reach all this stuff at the end, which we'll kind of show in our video, including these canvas shell racks here, which I still think are maybe the coolest addition to this kit. Well, not addition, it's part of the vehicle, but one of the coolest parts of this vehicle in this kit, and it just looks so good now that I have it painted. We get the shell rack as like in an open position, which you'll see me glue in the next video or segment here. And somehow, this is the beauty of modern Tamiya engineering. The contact point for this piece is going to be absolutely miniature. I guess I have to glue these two together first, but you'll see it in a couple steps here. The contact point is absolutely miniature, and yet they're still going to sit perfectly in place. And we have a little bit of a zipper that's raised for us to paint later. So I don't know. I just painted it and I thought it looked really cool. Being able to highlight the zipper on that canvas shell rack, really, really, really cool. It's one of the, you know, parts of the open turret that really bring it together in this kit. And again, you could put some green paint in there right now, but I didn't find that I needed to. I was able to just spray in there with the airbrush, and I can't see any different marks. What I might say is don't spray primer in there too heavily. Try to just maybe keep it green, and then you won't notice where the olive drab goes to the base color. But there you go. There are the shell rack kind of openings that I was talking about with those zippers. And they just fall right into place. Really, really amazing. Enough on that, though. We will move on to the breech, which it's going to go together pretty flawlessly here. Different than the Hellcat, but equally flawless in terms of engineering, fit, and build. Everything falls into place here. Everything's just perfectly detailed and done right. This is one of the easiest parts or best parts of the kit to build. Definitely most enjoyable. Attaching these right here, the way that they fit on right there is just perfect. That's classic modern Tamiya. And then we do have some poly caps in here. This will be the gun will be movable up and down. Obviously the turret can move left and right, which is nice. You can be, if you're doing a diorama or something, you can obviously configure these things differently. For painting, it will make it a little bit easier too to raise that breech or lower it, depending on what you're trying to paint. And then that gun breech is going to just slot right in here. And we got a nice fire hydrant on there that's going to have multiple, I think 2 different decals. A little bit difficult to paint it, but I was able to get the red in there. What I don't do is paint it. It does tell you to paint the handle white. I don't do that because that was just too hard to reach and you can't see it. But that is what the movable breech looks like. And now we just need to assemble the top of the turret. That will pretty much enclose it, well, as enclosed as it's going to get at least. And again, everything just plops right into place. You can't put these parts on backwards. They only go one way, which is very nice. So this little piece sticking down, this is the only thing. It's a little bit difficult. You got to check the directions, and even the directions they're only going to get so clear on where that little rod is going to fall down. So just fiddle with that a little bit. There's only one spot where it can really go, which is the good news. But it's still hard to find that spot. So I had to look at that for a while off camera to figure out where it was going to fit. And then we'll get ready to put our gun barrel in here. And we are almost done on the turret. And almost done with the kit, for that matter. Really nice gun barrel here from Tamiya, or Tamiya. There were 2 seam lines in it that we had to sand, but they were really minimal. Nothing really crazy at all. I don't see any need for a metal gun barrel for this kit. Although, would be nice, obviously, to have it. Then we have a couple more small pieces that we have to attach to the upper side of the rear side of the turret. Different grab handles and things. And then a mount for our 50 cal in a second here. We do get the same 50 cal that is in the M18. And what I mean by that is it's the same 50 cal that Tamiya uses on many different US vehicles. It's like the AA sprue. When I say it's the same as the Hellcat, is on the B sprue in this kit, we get a couple different parts that are the ammo canister. And they're going to have, the rounds, the 50 caliber machine gun rounds going into the gun, which we can paint in our 3 different, it's like copper, brass, and black. We can paint those in that color, and it just adds such good detail, especially with the decal we're going to put on. It really makes the 50 cal stand out on this kit. I will say the turret, or real quick, as you saw there, my tow cable didn't fit. I had to modify the holes. A little bit interesting. Never had to do that on a Tamiya kit, although they've never put tow cables like this. Not that they never have, but they usually don't. We usually get the string. I know on 1 or 2 of the kits they've done this thing before, but I think on the Comet. But yeah, just interesting that the holes weren't opened up in complete circles. They were like 80% opened up. Just strange, something I've never seen before, and something that wasn't in the directions. But about the turret rotates smoother than any other model that I have ever built. It just, even after painting it, and I used an Ammo by MiG Atom paint that my gloves were taking off after I let it sit and cure for 2 days. It just didn't go on very well over the primer for whatever reason. Regardless, the turret wasn't even scratching the paint off under it. So really, really, really smooth, which again is just nice. It's not something that the turret's not going to get stuck when you paint it. It's not going to scratch off all that paint. Just everything's going to be a little bit nicer in the end. And then the final piece here is our stowage, and this is a nice part. There's no exact way to put the stowage on. They do show you in the directions, which is more or less we're going to follow what they're telling us to do. But they don't fit, in any certain way. You could easily customize these, put them in different spots, whatever. Just nice little added detail there. And definitely the best baggage or stowage, whatever you would want to call it, that has been offered on a Tamiya kit so far. It is not the same kind of reworked stuff that we've been getting for what feels like 100 years. They're all new designed bags and everything. So there you have it. We have finished our M36, and good and bad. There is some absolute, 2025 Tamiya engineering moments that you would expect. The way the gun breech goes together, those shell racks in the back with the open canvas and the zipper, the bags on the side here, all the little pieces that just fit perfectly in, the hatches, all that stuff. Classic Tamiya, classic new Tamiya in the best way possible. The tracks, I just, again, I'm just not impressed, and it's really unfortunate to say. I don't know how they could have done it better. If I'm just being honest, I guess give you completely all individual links, but then I don't know, something about the American tracks aren't meant to function this way. I do have an RC Sherman, which from Tamiya in 1/35th scale, which has basically identical tracks to this, that just clicked together. They were like snap tight, no glue required, anything like that. And yeah, I know the RC tanks are a lot more expensive, so maybe those tracks are, but we wouldn't have that problem, and they're fully workable. So I don't know, maybe that's the answer. But the way that this is here is that, again, you'd have, because the long lengths are solid between the tracks and the individual ones are not, it'll never look even. Um, and both will be visible if you look at the front or the back of the tank, because they're not all individual. Some of them are that, longer. It's like 8 tracks long. But anyways, that's my spiel on the tracks. Again, if you're building this kit, it's just something to look out for, and to be mindful of. I don't fully mind. I'm already here. I've already built it. I wasn't going to stop and order, $50 tracks. Uh, Again, if I was going into it knowing this, I'd probably do something different. So, anyways, enough of the tracks. If you've made it this far and you haven't already, please ask you to like and subscribe to the channel. We will be doing many more model builds. I have a sci-fi model in the works that I found on sale at a bookstore. I have another aircraft coming up after this. So then, of course, we have the Jackson, which we'll finish painting, doing some detail work on. We'll get the decals on there, and then we will weather. And again, the plan is to do a winter camouflage on this. Obviously, I've attached and I will be painting everything. So we'll see how complicated it gets, how much time I have in my life. There is a little male modeler that is new in my house that is yelling at me at times that make me have to walk away from the bench. So we'll see what we can get done. But I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are planning to build this kit, have built this kit, have any experience, definitely leave a comment, in the video below. I do read and respond to all of them. I would love to hear other people's experiences with the tracks. Again, I completely chalk it up to like 90% sure it's got to be user error, but I've never had that problem with Tamiya tracks before. So would like to hear other people's experiences. And again, I did a different approach in the second set and got the same results. And they just weren't setting up after, 5 to 10 minutes, which sometimes I wrap them around in about 30 seconds. I really don't give them a lot of time to dry. So anyways, that's it for the build. We'll see you guys on the next video.